Quite a lot of folks, especially those newer to the world of Bitcoin, have this kind of preconceived notion that Bitcoin mining is just totally and utterly out of their reach. In today's video, we are going to debunk just that. Welcome back to another video. My name is Ian Major. I'm an entrepreneur, Bitcoin pleb, and all-around raging capitalist. And yes, in today's video, I want to kind of debunk this very understandable notion that Bitcoin mining is just totally and utterly out of the reach of sort of most of us, right? And this comes with this idea that hardware, the ASICs that are required to be competitive in a highly competitive world of Bitcoin mining, but we're going to use Compass Mining, which is a new-ish company, really that's come onto the scene over the last year or so, that is making this a lot more accessible for really anyone, at least with the upfront capital to be able to afford these machines, which is not, of course, everyone. But nonetheless, I thought this would make a good basis for this video. So my goal here is to encourage you to challenge this belief. I'm not saying that doing Bitcoin mining in any way, shape, or form is for everyone, but it is a really nice way to generate some non-KYC Bitcoin, which will and is becoming more important by the day. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what is Compass Mining, how does it work, and then I'm also going to comment on some of the alternatives or options, and even debunk the idea that mining at home is completely infeasible. For those returning to the channel, welcome back, my friends. As always, it is a pleasure to have you as we race towards 500 subscribers on the channel, which totally blows my mind. I know that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things, but it is a lot for me and relative to my original expectations when building this channel. Check out the video I did just a little bit ago on the sort of giveaway I'm doing in recognition of this impending milestone. But again, thanks to everyone for coming along for the ride. And for those new to the channel, and I know there are lots of you, about 80% of you watching right this second are not currently subscribed. And so if you like this content, I invite you to consider subscribing and join us in our merry gang in cyberspace. I cover all manner of Bitcoin content, including how-tos, tutorials, wallets, mining, news, analysis, you name it, I cover it. But with all that out of the way, though, let's go ahead and jump into what is Compass Mining and how does it work. All right, so let's jump in, and the best place to start is Compass Mining's own website. So it's compassmining.io. I'll link all this in the description down below. But you'll see a few kind of key menus at the top. Now everyone can mine Bitcoin. They're kind of selling points. And so let's just pop into the hardware, because I think this illustrates pretty well how this actually works. And so as you can see, there are different hardware options here. There's this sort of bundle, you could get 6 different of these and have it hosted in a Compass Mining facility. And then you'll see there are various ASIC models. Antminer and WhatsMiner are 2 of the most popular brands. And you'll see that the options are either hosted at home or hosted in wherever. This one happens to be the US. And you'll see there are a couple other models and options. Now, you'll see a few key pieces here. One is the price tag. And I mean, these are not negligible. This is not like assembling a $200 to $300 Bitcoin full node that you could do with a Raspberry Pi. These are some really, really serious machines. But suffice it to say, I mean, these are what they are, and these prices have gone up even since the beginning of the year. We had that huge kind of drop off in hash rate due to the crackdowns in China, and that hash rate is coming rapidly back. But there's still a lot of opportunity in the market. Now you'll see if hosting at home, you could basically buy and ship these, and that's actually pretty significant because there are definitely going to be supply shortfalls of ASICs, especially these kind of latest models. And then if you're going to host with Compass Mining, just be aware that, I mean, they are real backed up just because of demand. I imagine they're probably trying to spin up new facilities as we speak. But, for example, if you were to go with this option and host it with Compass Mining, it wouldn't be online until, in this case, May 30th. This other one is April 30th. So, I mean, there's months and months of runway if you are going to host it with Compass Mining. Now, for each of these, you can get more details. It has the hash rate, which is very important. So terahashes per second in this case. I will show you in just a moment how you can kind of calculate the estimated profitability depending on your different model. And then the other critical piece is, of course, the cost of electricity. So that's a good point to point out this this all-in hosting fee that you can see here. So $0.059 dollars per kilowatt hour. Honestly, that's pretty darn competitive. And this all-in hosting fee for Compass Mining does include the electricity, maintenance. I mean, it includes everything. So that is pretty darn nice. And again, we'll look at some examples of profitability in just a moment. But you can click into any of these and get some more details. Let's also check out some of their different facilities. And so you'll get my point when we scroll through here. Right now, they've got facilities in the U.S., in Nebraska and New Mexico. Take note of the electricity costs. So naturally, you would want to, go as low as you possibly can. That is the name of the game. But you can see there's a couple other locations that are under review, hopefully coming online soon. There's one in Canada as well. But once you continue scrolling down, you can see that all these other ones are fully booked. So Canada, Iceland, U.S., Kazakhstan has some very cheap, as you can see. And so you can get a sense of the range of costs. There's one in Russia even. And so you can see all of these other ones are fully booked. The other thing I want to just point you to is definitely their very helpful FAQ. So if you come back to the homepage and just go down a little bit to frequently asked questions, they've got some very, very useful guides, getting started, how to start mining Bitcoin, a step-by-step guide. And so this is if you were to go with the Compass Mining hosting option. You would visit the site, which we're on. You would, again, go to the hardware section, choose an ASIC, select a hosting facility, and then join a mining pool. And so this is basically a pool that allows individual operators of hash rate to kind of band together. And so when anyone wins the block within that pool, everyone kind of benefits commensurate with the amount of hash rate that they're contributing to the pool. And then, of course, you receive Bitcoin. And so you would basically have a designated address that Compass Mining, that your machine, right? It's not Compass Mining. Like Compass Mining doesn't have, I think there's a lot of good questions around, well, how truly non-KYC is Compass Mining as an option? KYC meaning know your customer. So this is one of the huge benefits of mining. Instead of putting all your personal information, your name, your address, everything about you, which you would have to do for a mainstream exchange such as Coinbase or Kraken or Binance or any of these, mining is just a computer running, right? And indeed, with Compass, you have to give some information, but it's very, very limited. And so I do think it is a valid and really good option, particularly for those who are seeing the ever more nefarious creep of surveillance that we can clearly see coming in impending regulation, particularly here in the U.S. So non-KYC Bitcoin is going to be more and more valuable as we go forward. But I'm going to kind of leave this here for now. There's a ton, like if you are serious about going down this route, there's, I would encourage you to kind of read through each of these. They're pretty quick and just punchy, get all the information that you possibly can. And then the really, really big choices here are hosting with Compass Mining versus hosting at home, which we will talk about some additional considerations for in just a moment. But the other thing you probably want to do is to get a sense of how much you could potentially make. And so for that, there's a really good profitability calculator over here at NiceHash. NiceHash, by the way, is where it's an exchange for hash rate. So you could potentially buy hash rate, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, I'll link this in the description down below. But they have this section here, manual selection, enter hardware manually. So I'll click this and it'll bring up this little calculator. And so, you could put in the currency you want to see it denominated in. And then here is that all important electricity costs. Now, in this model, you would obviously want to consider other upfront costs, such as, you may potentially need to change the voltage of your, the outlet that you're going to plug this thing in if you do it at home. Like, there's other costs that you'd want to factor in. But the main kind of variable cost is, of course, the electricity costs. This has, 0.05. As we saw, that was reasonable, but, the rates that Compass Mining is getting in some of their facilities are probably a lot more favorable than what, the average person might get. So just for conservative sake, let's maybe say 0.1, 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And then you can select the device. And so maybe let's look at that. What's miner we were just looking at? I believe the model was the M31S. Just one device, although you can change that. And let's go ahead and you can add other devices obviously too. Let's go ahead and just calculate. And so this will spit out a nice little approximate estimation for the income per day. And then in this table summary below, you get some estimates of, on a weekly and monthly basis. And so this is basically saying, here's how much Bitcoin you'd be estimated to earn. This is taking the sort of current exchange rate, as you can see here. So obviously that is subject to change. And then it's subtracting off the electricity costs and is giving you, in this case, a monthly profit of about 440 US. Which is not too shabby. Now, obviously, you'll want to compare that versus the upfront fixed costs, such as the hardware, that you'd want to, ensure you're comfortable with the sort of payback period that implies. The other really useful analysis I've seen is from Meltem. So Meltem Demirs is a well-known figure in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. And she is a known investor in Compass Mining. And she has done a couple of these like monthly mining updates. So again, I'll link this in the description as well. But it's pretty useful. So for example, she goes into, all the details. So this goes from February to May in this case. Here's the amount of Bitcoin that was mined and how much that is in US dollar terms. Here is the upfront cost for the hardware. As you can see, this is already, prices are already higher than this as we've gotten deeper into the year. There is a hardware resale value. Now, I think this is probably pretty generous here. And I think this is probably optimistic. But nonetheless, you then get the breakdown of the OPEX. So this is the hosting and electricity. I think Meltem has chosen to do a carbon offset, which obviously you are not in any way, shape, or form required to do. But then you're able to calculate a return both on the mining as well as envisioning some potential hardware resale value. I would encourage you to, again, be pretty conservative with that, given that these machines do become less productive over time as new models get rolled out that are just, even more kind of efficient and powerful. So with that, let's go ahead and jump now over to those key considerations, particularly if you're considering the at-home sort of hosting. So after that walkthrough, I want to just wrap up with a few other key considerations, a lot of which revolve around if you choose to do this at your home. So those considerations include a few-fold. One is noise management. So these things are very noisy. It'd be like a loud vacuum cleaner or a blender. And so you'll want to have some sort of noise canceling technique to use. The other consideration is the power supply. So this is a big deal, particularly for a lot of homes in the US in particular, and North America more broadly, that use 110 volt outlets. And these machines are going to require typically 220 volts. And so that may require, it's a couple $100 to kind of upgrade an outlet from one voltage to another, but it is something to consider if you are thinking about this path. The other piece you want to think about is a cooling system. These things generate a lot of heat. I mean, there's some folks who use this for heating hot tubs, growing plants and things like that. So there are some creative uses for the heat that's going to be spun off these things. But either way, you'll want a some sort of cooling, system or mechanism that will ensure that the machine and the environment is going to be kept cool. The other piece is just around maintenance and the sort of lifespan for these machines. I've seen, I think they're obviously very robust, and so, I mean, the need for maintenance is going to be very, very, very few and far between, but there are instances where the normal, shut off and power back up may not, solve an issue, and so you would need to potentially ship that to a registered, sort of dealer or technician that could fix that. Again, I think that's very, very, very few and far between. And the much larger driver you should be thinking about is just the lifespan of this machine. And so when you think about the profitability calculator we were going through earlier and how that will pay back your upfront investment for the hardware, this is really, really relevant. Like that, that runway needs to be less than the useful life of the machine, of course. And it's not necessarily that these machines are going to just break down after a couple years, although that's possible because they're doing a lot of work constantly every day, all hours of the day. But rather, it's just the sort of competitiveness of the Bitcoin mining environment. And so each sort of model, whatever model you get of hardware, it will lose its competitiveness to even more advanced machines that will be rolled out, year after year. It's like, the new iPhone, except these machines are actually better and more powerful than, the new iPhone, which is, it has a camera in a different position. So that's the thing to think about. And typically, historically, we've seen maybe between 2 to 3 years of sort of really productive, profitable lifespan for these machines, just given the pace at which new models are going to come out. And so that should in general be a more than adequate runway to pay back the upfront cost in really any range of reasonable profitability scenarios. But it is something to keep in mind, if you really want to make this a kind of long-term thing. And then the final perhaps consideration is just around the mining pool that you join. You want to do this in either case if you're running this at home or hosted with Compass. There's a lot of good research out on this topic, and so I'm not going to go into the detail here, but if you would like to see that in more detail, I could do a future video at another time. And then the very last thing I will put in the description down below is this extremely helpful guide from Econo Alchemist, which goes through the sort of from scratch full process for Bitcoin mining at home. And he even goes through how to procure the hardware if you're interested in going your complete own route and path and not using Compass mining at all, right? This goes into a lot of detail about how you can address some of the key considerations that we've gone through with helpful pictures, step-by-step guide, etc. So it's an awesome, awesome resource that I would really encourage you to take a look at if you're serious about any of this. With all that out of the way, though, let's go ahead and conclude this video. All right, my friends, there you have it. We covered a lot of ground as always. So just as a quick recap, we took a look at Compass Mining, how it works, these different options around hosting with their facilities or ordering the hardware and doing it at home. We talked about the critical importance of the cost per kilowatt hour and how that really is the sort of driving force in the economics or profitability of a Bitcoin mining operation, in addition, of course, to the price of Bitcoin. And then we talked about some of the key considerations if you do want to go the home mining route. That is not trivial at all, but it's also not out of reach. And so I've left you with a number of resources in the description down below if you are interested in going that route. But my whole point of this video was to really debunk this idea that Bitcoin mining is just completely unreachable for the average individual. It's really not if you're willing to put in the time and attention, and of course capital, right? There is a certainly good debate around the merits of just stacking sats versus investing in the hardware. But I do think Bitcoin mining brings a number of really powerful benefits, including the non-KYC aspect, which is going to become more and more and more important. So with that, we'll go ahead and leave this video here. I hope you found this valuable and useful. If you did, you already know what to do. Give this video a like, comment down below with your thoughts, questions, and ideas for what future videos you'd like to see. I really do take that into account when making the schedule for the channel. But for now, we'll go ahead and leave this here. As always, my friends, every sat counts. Non-KYC if you can do it. And until next time, I'll see you then.